Thanks to the folks who led the way. Thanks to the folks, let us thank them every day.
The theme of today's show was inspired by A.J. Muste, and he was a very important political activist going back way till 1912 when he was working with the labor movement, and probably he's best known for that. As well as the labor movement, he was involved with the anti-war and civil rights movement. And one of the things he's noted for is the many, many nights he stood outside the White House and he held up one single candle all night, and sometimes it was rainy and the weather wasn't that good. But he wanted to make a comment. He had a sign there against the war, and while he was standing out there, a reporter came up to him and said, "You don't really think you can change the country by standing out here, do you?" And AJ said, "Oh no, I'm not doing this to change the country. I'm doing this so the country doesn't change me." And that's what inspired this show. Well, AJ came to America in 1891 with his family, and it was a pretty rough ride. The ships were pretty crowded then, and they came from Netherlands, and their family was members of the Reformed Church there, and they were looking for someplace a little more accommodating or welcoming for their religion. So they came across the Atlantic in one of those crowded ships, and his mom was very sick along the way. It was very crowded, not healthy. But they finally got here, and it was pretty scary, and I think he was probably 5 or 6 when they arrived and looked around at this new country, and maybe sometimes they weren't all that welcome because they were a ragtag bunch of people coming to this country. As a young man, A.J. attended the theological seminary of the Reformed Church in America. And while he was there, he took a lot of philosophy courses, studied a little bit with William James, and met John Dewey, who became a personal friend of his. When he got further into the religious teachings, he started to question some of the fundamental principles. Well, after A.J. Muste graduated from the theological seminary, he did become a pastor, but it wasn't too long before he became increasingly uncomfortable with the Reformed Church and left it. He became much more influenced by the social gospel movement, which was still connected with the Protestant Church, but was more focused on the Christian ethics, Christian efforts to social problems, especially issues like social justice, economic inequality, was very concerned with the racial tensions that were so prevalent at the time. His whole interest became more involved with social issues. He wasn't just going to practice his religion just on Sunday and not just teaching in the Sunday school about love, and he actually wanted to go out there and be active. Well, in 1919, there was a lot of injustice being done to the workers in this country. They were working 54 hours a week in the mills, and they were lucky to make 20 cents an hour. So there were major strikes in Massachusetts, and A.J. got involved with the Lawrence textile strike. Most of the workers were immigrants and didn't speak English, so he stepped up and got involved and told the workers that he would help them however he could. He ended up becoming the spokesperson for 30,000 workers, and after extensive strikes and a lot of violence on the picket lines, he ended up getting beat up so badly that he couldn't walk anymore, and then they arrested him, and luckily, after a few weeks in jail, they dismissed the charges against him for, quote, disturbing the peace. The strike was eventually settled after about 16 weeks, and after both sides were nearly exhausted, they came to a point of compromise. The agreement called on a shortening of the work week and gave them all a 3-cent hike from that 20 cents an hour. But for the time, they thought by getting shorter work week, they could live with just a 3-cent increase in their hourly. A.J. was involved with the civil rights movement. He worked with some of the folks that were closest to Martin Luther King Jr. Some of them said they never made a decision without first checking with Muste. He tried to contribute as much as he could to the civil rights movement, but he died in 1967 at the age of 82. He did so much to try to further the cause. It certainly has been a long journey trying to obtain civil rights. Sometimes there's been some setbacks.
AJ's candle lit up the night. AJ's love was his candlelight. When in shadow stood up and held it high, to fight for love became his life.